Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about what it is that I currently eat on this carnivore animal-based diet. So it has been almost 3 years for me eating an animal-based diet, but a lot has changed within these 3 years. I've experimented with reintroducing foods like dairy. I've even tried a bit of non-carnivore foods like fruit, and I'm here to tell you my synopsis of my self-experimentation and kind of go through literally all of the foods that I eat because I can literally list them and just share with you what works for me, what doesn't work, and what reintroducing certain foods has done for my health. Whether it's been positive or negative, I'm going to share everything with you. But I want you to keep in mind, every person is different. So, for example, Danny and I, we've both reintroduced or tried to reintroduce the same foods, but we've reacted differently. Some things he can tolerate better and I can't, and vice versa. So it's actually really, really interesting to observe living in the house with the same person and trying the same foods but having completely different results. So that's been cool, but it makes sense because, for example, Danny, he has celiac disease. So whenever he has foods that contain gluten, he reacts terribly. All of his allergies come back. Whereas if I have something more carby, which I very rarely do. Like, I have not had any processed foods in 3 years. So what I consider a carb would be like a pumpkin or a squash. I do just fine with that. So very interesting. But let's get started. What do I drink on the carnivore diet? Water and coffee. Sometimes soda water, but very rarely. But yeah, pretty simple. I don't drink alcohol. I mean, once in a while, like for the holidays, I had some wine. Doesn't make me feel too good. I wake up and my eyes are all puffy and got joint pain all over. So I stick to water and coffee. Coffee is my one vice that I'm trying to kick, but it's not easy. So just to kind of take it back, rewind a little bit. When I first started this carnivore diet in April of 2019, it was a diet that consisted strictly of beef, salmon, lamb, and then eventually a little egg yolk that I reintroduced, and beef fat. I would chop up the beef fat into little tiny pieces and air fry. So it was kind of like Mikhaila Peterson's Lion Diet. And I did that for quite a long time, I think for at least 6 months before I reintroduced chicken and pork. And that went pretty well. But I did not introduce any non-animal products until about, let's say, like 8 months ago. So we'll talk later about that. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about first was what I currently eat. And I can literally list all of the foods, and I'm gonna go through them one by one because these are the foods that I prioritize. And I've been putting a lot of thought into this recently, and I think it has helped me a lot to see things in a perspective where I don't focus on what foods I can't consume, but I shift my perspective to what foods should I consume, what foods are most high in nutrient density, what foods are most bioavailable. So I like that way more because it's more of a healthier mindset. I don't really like to have a list of things that I can't have and the list of things that I can have. I don't really like those lists, don't work well for me. So what I like is just to think of things as, is it nutrient dense or is it not? So that helps me a little bit more. But so I wrote some foods down here, and this is what my diet currently consists of. lots of beef. Beef is my number one choice of animal protein and fat. And of course, beef and animals are more than just protein and fat. They are they have pretty much every nutrient that we need. Everything is in there. So it's more than just protein and fat. But when it comes to beef, I do focus on the more affordable cuts, which consist of ground beef, lots of ground beef. I order ground beef every week from the farm, grass-fed, grass-finished, and just to add, all of the meat that I eat is grass-fed and grass-finished, and that's why I go for more of the cheaper cuts, because I can't afford grass-fed, grass-finished prime rib roast or prime rib steak, or the more expensive cuts. If it's grass-fed, grass-finished, I don't have that kind of money, so I go for the more cheap cuts, which is ground beef, and I always choose the high-fat ground beef. My farmer is able to do 20% fat. And beef liver is something that we also prioritize. I think we eat beef liver about once a month, twice a month, kind of space it out because it comes in a big package. So I usually kind of eat from that package for about 3 days. Cheap steaks, where I'm at, flat iron, flank, skirt, those are cheap steaks for me. Cheap steaks are the way to go. They may not be super, super fatty. So what I like to do is pair it with crispy fat bites. So kind of the protein and fat ratio kind of balances it out that way. So like I said, flat iron, flank, skirt, those are my faves. We get a lot of brisket. My farmer is able to get me briskets that are about sorry, I'm so bad with sizing. I always show with my hands, but like a little brisket like this. And I love to just throw a brisket into a soup in the slow cooker, and it just kind of falls apart in there. So it becomes kind of like a broth stew. Another cut of beef that we love that's fairly cheap is beef cheek. I saw beef cheeks for the first time when Strong Sisters made them, and I fell in love. It kind of does have like a lot of fat in between the protein, so I love that. Also, buko is also another great cut. Oxtail, also buko and oxtail. I don't understand why those cuts are cheap, but I'm not complaining. Bone marrow is also very important to us. And like I mentioned, beef fat. I get the beef fat from my farmer. It comes in a big chunk like this. I chop it up into little cubes, like ice cube size, and then I repackage them and freeze them for a later time. I also make bone broth, and actually after I make bone broth, what I love to do is, I get tired of eating bone broth for too many days at a time. So probably on the third or fourth day of my bone broth, I get a big cut of meat, whether it's a brisket or like a cheaper roast, and I make stew, which is fantastic. So I could probably do a recipe video on that. That's been something that I've been doing a lot lately. I'm loving the stews, and beef heart and beef tongue. So that's about how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's about 15 types of cuts of beef that we eat. This is not weekly. I kind of alternate and play with it, but for sure, what I have every week is ground beef. Flat iron, we have almost every week, if not bi-weekly. Some kind of also buko or oxtail, beef fat. So I just kind of play around with it. I have like all of these cuts to pick and choose from, and I pick depending on my mood, or if we get sick, which we rarely do, but if we get sick, then I immediately up the bone broth. That's like my medication. 100% my go-to for any kind of recovery. If you are sore from a workout, bone broth. Sniffly nose, bone broth. Sore throat, bone broth. So that's my go-to. But what I've been loving also, instead of beef bone broth, we do a lot of chicken broth from chicken feet. I don't really eat a lot of chicken. I did for months. For months, we had a lot of chicken and a lot of pork. I have not really been craving chicken or pork. Once in a while, I'll have it, but it's just I go through phases, and right now, at least for the last like 4 or 5 months, haven't felt the need for any chicken or pork. I think for over the holidays, our friends made some and we snacked. We had some turkey, just picked at it. But I'm more about the beef and lamb. We eat lamb. Sometimes it is a bit more expensive, so maybe once every 2 months we'll get some lamb ribs, some lamb chops, and we also have salmon every 2 weeks. I like to get my DHA. Salmon is one of the highest sources of DHA, which is amazing for our brains. We need DHA in order to have strong brains. So I love salmon. I always try to eat wild caught salmon. You do not want to eat farmed salmon, so just make sure you ask wherever you get your salmon from. And another type of seafood that we've been loving recently is Mahi Mahi. It's a super, super delicious, like a white tropical fish, and I cook it in butter, and it's just like cream. Tuna once in a while, a light sear, and oysters. So this is something that I have discovered recently. Oysters. I never thought I liked them before. I ate them because I thought they were good, but I found a really good source. I thought they were good for me, but I found a really good source of oysters. And then I kind of started diving into why are oysters good for us? And they're really, really high in zinc and copper, which a lot of us are deficient in. And I actually, if you've watched some of my videos, you will have learned that I got sick from mold. So in the process of trying to heal myself from the inside, so I got actually sick from mold. I have Tinea versicolor. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's a fungal infection on the skin. I'll show you guys my little white spots there. You see? You can still see them a little bit. So I got sick topically, but I also had mold toxicity inside my body first. That came first. So a couple steps that I worked on, that I took to begin my healing journey, was I eliminated myself from the moldy home, and I worked with my nutritionist, and she recommended that I consume oysters. She said, if you can't find raw oysters, take oyster supplements. So I did. I bought Oyster Max. I can link them below for you guys with my nutritionist code if you care to buy some. But I have to say, they were amazing. The supplements were fantastic. I almost feel like they deserve their own video, like a review. It's weird, like within the first 2 days of taking those oyster supplements, I felt like this, like I could only think positively. Any negative thought that entered, gone, disarmed. And the most fascinating part was that Danny, so he has age macular degeneration. It's like a eye disease, and zinc and copper actually help with age macular degeneration. So when he takes the Oyster Max, his vision improves. Sounds crazy, but he can literally, like, if he doesn't take the Oyster Max supplements, or if he doesn't eat oysters, his eyes are super, super sensitive to light. So if we're outside and it's a sunny day, he's kind of like squinting, he can't look directly at the sun. When he takes Oyster Max, he can stare into the sun. Like, he almost cried the first day that he took them. It was like immediate. So I'm a huge advocate as of recently for raw oysters. They're very expensive. I mean, it depends where you are in the world, but from my experience, they're pricey. I think it's worth it though. And if you think about it, you can spend like $60 a month and go to the gym, or your Netflix subscription is how much? $34 a month. So you have to kind of see it like as an investment in your health. If you're willing to pay for other things, for like subscriptions, memberships, see it like that. That's how I see it, to be honest with you. I had to kind of rewire the way that I perceived this expense, because I recently bought Oyster Max, and I think I got like 8 bottles for, I think it was like under $300, and I was like, ugh, it's kind of a lot, but it's gonna last me a long time because I don't take them every day. So yeah, I did not anticipate this oyster rant, but I really want you guys to know about the benefits of oysters, and it is safe to eat them raw. Despite what the internet says, it's fine. Just make sure you're getting them from a good source. And oysters are also amazing if you live in cooler climates where you don't have much available vitamin D from the sun. Oysters are a great source of vitamin D. So let me go back to my list over here. Yeah, so oysters. Going back to, I said that I bought some more bottles of the Oyster Max supplements. I won't be taking them every day. I'm gonna kind of use the Oyster Max as a tool for optimizing my health, and just kind of do like a few days on, a few days off. And then if I ever do feel a little bit under the weather, then I up that dosage a little bit. So that's how I consume my oysters. I will also buy them raw when I have the chance. And then shrimp. Shrimp is another seafood, little fishy that we eat. And in terms of dairy, I know you guys have seen me cook a lot with dairy. So you're probably like, oh, I guess she eats dairy now. I do once in a while. I mostly use cream for baking like sweets and stuff, and raw cream, and raw cheese. I love raw cheese, but I know personally for me that it's a treat. I know that there are some great benefits to eating raw cheese, but for me, it is highly addictive. I have one piece and I can't stop, so I always have that in the back of my mind, like, if something is so addictive, can it be really good for us? So I am aware. Also, if you guys have heard of paleo medicina, they advocate for a PKD diet, which is like a Paleolithic ketogenic diet. It's a specific fat to protein ratio, and they say no dairy at all. So, and they actually publish studies on there as to why dairy is inflammatory. So I kind of like always keep that in the back of my mind. So I'm not too thrilled about dairy, but once in a while I do consume it, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I'm gonna start off by telling you guys backtracking a little bit, because I feel like I got really into the oysters, but I was telling you guys about my mold situation. So I got sick from mold. So that's why I started with the oyster supplements, and they did help. They helped heal me from the inside. Like my mold toxicity affected my throat. I had a throat pain, sinus, congestion. I was so tired. I could not get out of bed in the morning. Felt like a truck hit me. So what I did was I did like strict animal-based carnivore, lots of fat, and oyster supplementing, and I took selenium as well. That was recommended by my nutritionist, and it helped. My throat felt better, my energy levels came back. That was good, but it did not clear up my tinea versicolor. That was still here. And I had a couple people tell me to buy this cream, this medication, and put it topically, and I was so resistant. I really don't like to use any ingredients or to ingest or eat anything that I cannot pronounce or understand. So for the longest time, I had these like bright white spots, and because I was healed from mold internally, and the spots don't itch, they don't bug me at all. They're just like visually unpleasant, and it just doesn't look good. I felt like I was kind of fine, so I was experimenting with some coconut water. What was I having? I had pineapple, and it was actually flaring it up. So when I would have sugar, it would flare up my skin fungus. It was wild. So I knew immediately that I had to stop. So I had to stop the coconut water. I had to stop pineapple. I had to stop mango, and I had to stop plantain. Was I eating a lot of it? No and yes. At first, yes. You have to keep in mind hadn't that was my fridge. I hadn't eaten fruit in 2 years. So getting a fresh taste of a cold, ripe mango was like heaven. So I overconsumed a bit at first, and man, like, what do I have to say about fruit? It is highly, highly addictive. And it got to the point where I did not feel good. Fruit bloats me, and it makes me want more and more and more. So it also didn't help my fungal growth on my skin. So I had to cut all of that stuff out, and I now consume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foods that are non-animal based, but not every day. I feel my best when my meals are full meat, and whether that's eggs, and let's say like brisket. It has to be like from the animal kingdom. That's when I feel my best. But I once in a while, and I see this as a treat, I have dates, dried figs, honey, papaya, and squash. But what I find has worked best for me, and like this has taken so much like self-control, is to consume these things. And I'm not there yet with everything, but for example, squash or papaya, I will eat it in a way that would mimic how it would be with our ancestors. So I don't have papaya every week. I don't have it every day. I have it once a month. Usually it's around my moon cycle, around my menstrual cycle, because that's when I kind of crave a few more things. So I use it as a treat. And then with dates and figs, I usually save that for a special occasion. Like during the holidays, I made a big platter with prosciutto and cheese, some dates, some figs. Or if friends are coming over and I want to share food with my friends, something that we can eat together, because not everybody enjoys a medium rare steak or a ground beef bowl. Like it's weird to people. So, I kind of allow myself that, and the impact is minimal. With squash, I don't bloat, which is fantastic. I love that. It's like the one safe carb source for me. I love it. I bake it in the oven. I add butter and sometimes a little bit of honey and salt, and I eat it with meat, of course. Papaya, like I said, I share the papaya with Danny or with my family. We eat it together. I don't sit there and eat an entire papaya, or if I have a little bit, save some for the next few days. And I find that I don't react negatively to it, but is it good? I mean, I could eat an entire one, but I don't. It's so freaking amazing. It's my favorite fruit. Honey, I have weekly. I save it as a treat. I love honey with like egg dessert. So that's when I have honey, or if I have a sore throat, I will put some honey, like a teaspoon, helps with my throat. And then, like I said, dates and figs once a month, something like that. But I do feel my absolute best when I am eating animal based. And that's something that I've learned within the last year. It was a huge learning lesson. And the only way you're going to learn if you can reintroduce things is to try it out for yourself. And I think that it has to be done very carefully. You know, you introduce one thing, eat it for a few days, and go back to just meat, then try it again, eat it for a few days, see how you feel. How's your stool? When I have the date, fig, honey, papaya, squash, my stool changes a bit. My stool is perfect when I'm eating animal based. It gets a little bit weird when I start introducing things, but that is a decision that I make. I'm okay with it. So it just depends on your own health journey, what you're going through currently, what are you trying to heal. Going strict like carnivore elimination diet is a great tool for healing, and everybody, you know, we're all of different ages, we all have different health concerns that we're trying to heal. So my journey is going to look very, very different from yours. But I do feel like, you know, it's nice to be able to enjoy a few things. I've been enjoying it. I don't really feel the need to like add other non-animal based foods because I feel fine. Like I'm so happy with just like one squash a month or a little papaya. Like I'm overjoyed. And then I love meat. I can never get tired of the animal food. So like pretty happy with how things are going. But what was really, really interesting is when I reintroduced plantain or fruits like pineapple or coconut milk, I actually get skin flare-ups. I don't know if it's like psoriasis or a form of eczema, but I get flakes in my eyebrows and I get like scabs in my scalp, which is something that I used to have prior to this way of eating. I literally would just get like these scabs that I could pick off. So they come back with a vengeance. But so for example, I was drinking coffee with coconut milk because I was thinking it's better to have coconut milk than pasteurized dairy. And it was fine at first. I was good. It was so yummy, no issues. But then, you know, you start getting the skin flakes and the eyebrow flakes and the dry, crusty eyes. I get dry, crusty eyes from plantain, from coconut milk, from coconut water too. And I do love coconut water once in a while. That's something else that I have. But like once a month, twice a month if I'm, you know, in the mood for it. But I know that right now I'm still trying to heal my tinea versicolor and it brings it out. So I'm aware of these things. Side note, if anyone is dealing with like a fungal infection on the skin and doesn't want to use like over-the-counter medications or I don't know, antibiotics or whatever, tea tree oil is fantastic. I was super hesitant to use it because I'm stubborn and I wanted to heal from the inside, blah, blah, blah. But I started using it and it's taken a long time, but it's fading. It really is fading and I'm happy about it. At first I used coconut oil and then I diluted the tea tree oil in the coconut oil because they're both antifungal, but it wasn't doing much. So I'm like, screw the coconut oil. I'm just going to use tea tree. And I didn't have a negative reaction to using tea tree directly on my skin. Some people do, so you should do like test an area. But yeah, that's my story. This is what I'm eating. If I'm going to be completely transparent with you, I probably could have cured my topical fungal skin infection sooner if I just went like pure meat-based sooner. I didn't. You know, you kind of, I don't want to say that I fell off the wagon because all of my meals included meat, but I mean, if you're finishing strong with like pineapple after, what do you expect? So that's kind of what I wanted to share. I also have here in my notes that when I eat anything that my body does not like, so any of the things that I mentioned, because that's really like as far as I've wandered off. I haven't had anything else that I did not mention. I get bloated and I get really puffy eyes and loose stool. So those are my like warning signs. I get skin issues, flaky eyebrows, flaky head. My tinea versicolor flares up. I get really puffy eyes, dry eyes, flaky, and a lot of like, you know, that morning crust. So when I just eat animal based, I don't have morning crust. I don't know what that is, if anyone knows. But when I eat off track, I get so much morning little crusties, and then loose stool, and I might have mentioned already bloating. So that's kind of what I deal with, and yeah, I think I'm rambling now, so I'll cut it short. I hope you guys find this useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the comments. I will respond to all of your questions. And I just want to be honest with you on my journey. I'm still here, almost 3 years, going strong, and I believe that meat truly heals. So wishing you guys all the best. Hope you enjoyed these 2 videos on the screen and have a beautiful week ahead. Ciao.